Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the 2024 Kawasaki Ninja SE KRT and the Kawasaki Ninja SE. Now, before we go too far, these are the two top-of-the-line Ninjas. There's one step down that we haven't got on film yet, but we will have soon, which is the entry-level Ninja. It's about $900 Canadian cheaper. These ones have a few options on them, which I will point out, which separate them just a little bit from that more entry-level Ninja. You could also argue that this isn't an entry-level Kawasaki anymore, that this is a mainstream bike, and in one particular way you can show that it might be a flagship bike for Kawasaki. So what we're going to do in this review is we're going to go through these bikes in detail, specifically that one, because this is an identical bike to that one, although it has the traditional paint scheme that I think most people are familiar with. But the options and features are the same on these bikes. The prices are the same on these bikes. So you can get it in the Kawasaki Racing Team KRT color scheme, or you can get it in the red color scheme. We're going to show it in the red today because I've got the key for that one, and I think it's something that people haven't seen before. So I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports. This is the #1 volume Kawasaki dealer in the country, and they give me complete access to their entire vehicle lineup. So if there's something that you want to know about these bikes that I don't cover in this video, make sure you subscribe. We're going to have a whole bunch more videos of this. We've already done the Z500 SE. I'm going to be comparing this to that in the future. We're going to do a lot more videos on these bikes. So if you're interested in these bikes, subscribe. And if there's something I don't get to that you want to know about, let me know in the comments section, and I'll respond to you both in the comments section and in future videos to create a video database of all the information you could want to know about these bikes. Let's get going with this review. So before we dive into the specifics of this bike, I'm just going to jump across this one here, the KRT version. Again, this is an SE KRT, that's an SE. They are identical other than the paint scheme. So let's talk about rider position on this bike first, and then we'll start digging into the details. There's a lot of things that have changed in this bike from the Ninja 400, more so than just the engine, which we'll talk about what the changes are there. So first of all, riding position is basically the same as the 400 when you look down here. I have size 11 feet, and in the showroom, sometimes I feel like my heel hits this little cover over the exhaust or over the pipe there, and it does in a showroom. When I'm in a riding environment, it doesn't. It's just you're in a different position, and it doesn't. This bike is perfectly acceptable for that, but it still has that compact feel that the 400 had, and that makes sense because the 400 and other small Ninjas are a really popular way for Kawasaki to introduce people to the brand. A lot of people who drive Kawasaki started on a small Ninja at some point in their lives, and this is sort of their continuation of that. So what you have here is a slightly more inclined position than some would think. The seat has been redesigned, and as I sit on it again and again and again, I do think it is more comfortable. It is a slightly different shape. It doesn't sort of push you into the tank. That's sort of the reasoning for the redesign. I never felt like the other one pushed me into the tank, but I will say that this one is very comfortable. Now, what's interesting about these SE models is they actually have a larger windscreen than the traditional Ninja. What that does is kind of bring in the sport touring aspect. It gives you a little bit extra wind protection in here. If you get in a full tuck position, it's very easy to send the wind over your head, so you have that as an advantage, but you also have just the upright seating position here as an advantage of a little extra wind protection. So again, one of the differences between a Ninja and the Z model is your mirrors are out in front of you even in the tuck position. On the Z model, you have handlebars instead of clip-ons. We're going to show you those, but the mirrors are out here on the Z, so the mirrors are behind you. Overall, you've got some room to move around, but not a ton, but it is, again, improved comfort. I will say that that probably is an improved comfort, and the handlebars are a little bit tighter instead of a little bit wider like the Z model. So you do have a slightly different riding position than the Z, but let's dig into all of the features on this bike, and we'll go through it bit by bit to show you what's new and what's great and maybe what's not so great. So let's start at the front wheel here, which is where I start on almost every motorcycle, because when you look at the front wheel, you can look at the manufacturer's intent for this bike. And what you see here is a combination between some pretty sporty aspects, but also some, economy type things. So again, this bike is designed to hit a price point, but also designed to be the leader within that price point. And it really is. So what you have here is a 110 millimeter wide front wheel. So it's still 17 inches across, which is the standard for a sport bike. So it's a 17-inch diameter wheel with a 1 centimeter narrower front wheel than all of the super sport bikes. And I mean all of the super sport bikes. So what that does for you is it gives you a little bit more of that flickability that this bike is really known for by having that little bit smaller front wheel. So it really gives you a great handling bike. When we compare this to the 400cc bike that came before it, we used to have the pedal style rotors, so they had kind of the in and out kind of design to the outside here. Kawasaki's moved away from that. They did that for a number of years. So what you have here is a more modern, standard style 310 millimeter rotor. So this is a large rotor. It is only a single side, so a lot of times you'll see on the bigger bikes that go much, much faster, top speed, and they also weigh more, you'll see the double disc. This is all the stopping power you're going to need for this bike, especially for the top speed that it goes, but it is still a quality disc brake there, and you have nice sort of aerodynamics here. You'll notice the ABS sticker. This one has ABS front and rear, of course, and overall quality components here, but nothing crazy, nothing that you're going to spend a ton of money on. Some bikes in the class will have upside down suspension now. This one doesn't. I don't know that that is going to make a huge difference to the actual rider of this bike. I think sometimes when you put low-end upside-down suspension or high-end upside-down suspension, there's a difference. And again, when you're hitting certain price points, although the style might be different, you're not probably going to see a whole lot of difference from the rider's perspective. So I'm comfortable with them going with the right-side-up forks instead of the upside-down forks, but they also don't have any adjustment on it, which is worth noting. So taking a look at the heart of this bike, you have a lot of fairings that of course cover that engine. Now what you have here is the 400cc engine that has been so reliable for so many years that a lot of people have been really thrilled about. That 400cc parallel twin engine has been the power leader in the group for a while, and now they stepped it up to what they call a 500. They call it the Ninja 500. What it really is 451 cc's, and what they do is they make those cylinders travel just a little bit farther, like millimeters farther, and what that does is it's a longer stroke and creates more power everywhere in the power band. So when you think about how much cc's they've added, more than a Vespa scooter. We have 49cc Vespa scooter just off camera right here. And that little tweak added an entire Vespa engine's worth of displacement and then some. So although it seems small, like a 51cc displacement jump, it is a power jump in this, and you will notice it. It's the same engine that's used in a lot of bikes actually now. The Eliminator 500 in Canada, they call it. So this Eliminator, the new cruiser bike from Kawasaki. They also use it in the new hybrid that's coming up, which will have an electric and gas engine mixed. This will be the gas engine in there. So again, a tweaked engine. You've got most of the same parts to give you that reliability, but increased power. So again, do you want in your small bike more power? If you do, this is the one to get. And again, reliability should be basically unchanged, as so much of this is still the same bike as it was before. Bodywork is all new. One thing you're going to see on the SE model is a number of different things. You've got the frame sliders here. This is on the same thing on the SE of the Z500 SE. You won't get these frame sliders standard on the basic Ninja. Again, the one about $900 Canadian cheaper, but you can always add them if you want them on the Kawasaki accessories list. So again, they kind of fit into the frame here, well designed into the fairing bodywork. Bodywork in person looks fantastic. It's hard to point that out on camera, but it really does look great in person. Let's keep moving our way back on this bike now. Taking a look at the redesigned tail section, again, new for the 500. You can see that 500 logo there. Again, if it bothers you that it's a 451, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. That's how the motorcycle world does things. But on this SE model, you have this tail cover. Now you have options here. You can have this cap on there, which of course is not the seat. That's plastic up there. If you want the actual seat there, that also comes with it. So you have both. It's kind of one of the cool things about the SE model. They kind of offer you that customization. And for me, that makes a ton of sense in this model, because for this style of bike, this class of bike, most of the riders are going to be solo riders. They're not going to take a passenger around, but if you want to take a passenger, you absolutely can. It comes standard with your rear pegs down there, and you're going to see another thing that I really like about the Ninja 400 that they continued on the 500 here. You've got this little hook in there. I don't know if you can sort of see it behind my fingers there. Yeah, you can see it there. It's got the ability to strap a bungee on there and strap an extra bit of luggage on there. So I wouldn't do that if you had this painted surface up here, because you don't want to scratch that up. But if you have the seat there, you can use that to carry your, whatever you want to carry, an extra helmet, your lunch, that kind of thing. Carry a bungee underneath that rear seat, and you do have the ability to sort of make this your commuter without having to add any luggage or anything like that. Just strap on a little bungee strap, and you can strap to that hook right down there, and it also fits really good on, or really well, on this little hook behind the rear foot peg there. So, couple things that kind of make it practical as well as very sporty looking. So I want to show you the lighting on this bike because it is improved for 2024 for this 500 model compared to the 400 model. But to show you the lighting, I have to turn the bike on. And to turn the bike on, we're going to talk about one of the key flagship items about this bike. This is your key fob. Now it does have a jackknife style key there, and you can use that to take that rear seat off, but you do not have an ignition key anymore. This is just like a push button start car. We're going to show you that in a second. You can see it says Ninja there. I don't know if you can see it clearly there, but that is your key fob. I'm going to keep that in my pocket for this entire video, but I'm going to walk over here to the ignition key, which of course is not an ignition key. I'm going to pause for a second as it sort of clicks to the on. I'm going to turn it to the on position. Now I could start it from here. We are indoors, so I'm just going to leave it, but you do have improved headlighting here. First thing to note about the headlighting is it is that bright white LED. A lot of time older Kawasaki used to have only one side lit and not the other. This has both sides lit, and they do talk about a little bit wider range of view in here. The white lighting, of course, is going to allow you to have a really good view of the road ahead because that white lighting is closer to daylight. It allows your eyes to tell if it's a rock or a raccoon. You can sort of identify between both. So again, improved lighting. The other thing you have here is four-way flashers, which was not on the 400 in the past. So these are the hazard lights. Signal lights are built into the side of the bodywork on this model. On the Z model, they were up sort of by the handlebars. So you do have a different front end completely on this Ninja versus the Z500. But the other thing worth noting is they are full LED lights front and rear. I just reviewed the Z900, which would be, you know, a step up the line compared to this bike, and it still in North America does not have the LED signal lights. So you do have good equipment levels here, including, like I said, this key. And this key almost makes it a flagship model. There is no other bike in the lineup for 2024 that has this key yet. Got blonde hair sitting on there. But no other bike that has this key yet, which kind of shows how the Kawasaki gives the importance to this model. They know this is a really important model to them. Obviously that key will work its way through the lineup, but you'd see it first on sort of their entry-level sport bike, which is really interesting to me. So taking a look at the windshield here, one thing I want to point out is it is different. The old windshield from the old Ninja used to sort of be a one piece from plastic into the, I'm going to call it glass, even though we all know it's not glass, but it didn't have this gap in there. This gap is going to allow airflow through, which again reduces that buffeting behind the windshield, reduces sort of that suction. And again, this is a taller and wider touring windshield essentially on this bike, on the SE model. And you can see that it sort of comes up here, curls down in a step and comes out wide. So a little bit wider, a little bit taller, nice kind of, taller windscreen. Again, this SE model opens up that sport touring kind of world for you in this small displacement class, which I think is brilliant. You've got a little bit more seat comfort, a little bit more comfort from a little bit less wind, a little bit more wind and weather protection. And that really means that this bike is not just an entry-level bike that you move on from. It becomes a bike that you can keep for a long, long time and use for a whole variety of purposes, which I think in this price class is super important. Get a bike that can do a lot of things for you. This is one of those bikes. Taking a look at the 14-liter tank here, you can sort of see there is some extra protection here. Again, all of that is on the SE model. What you can't see as well in this color scheme, we'll try to kind of zoom in here, is there's the same type of protection on the side here. So side of the tank, top of the tank, you've got extra protection there. And then again, you have this redesigned seat. So again, seat comfort is not something that was an issue for me in the previous model, but the more I sit on this, the more I find that it is more comfortable. It's just kind of slightly different shaped, raised up here, sort of spread out, and that slight difference in shape is going to give you a little bit extra comfort. And like I said, this is a bike that I would be fully comfortable sport touring on if you wanted to. So you've got those options there. Let's take a look at the dash and the controls now. So the first thing I want to look at here is the new keyless entry type function. So I've got the key sitting right here. I'm going to throw that back in my pocket. I actually haven't had a lesson on this, so I'm not 100% sure if I'm teaching it correctly, but what I seem to find is as you touch this or press it in, that orange light comes on and then you can turn it to the on position right there. So there's a little bit of a touch process to sort of activate it, and then you can turn it on. You can see that TFT dash in the display here. We'll talk about that in a second. But a pretty simple situation. Turn it off. That light will eventually go off. And once that turns off, then you can sort of step away and there you go. It's off and now the bike is essentially locked. If I didn't have the key on me, I wouldn't be able to do anything. But because I have the key on me, it's just like a proximity key, works really well. So if that's something that you think is cool to have on your motorcycle, a lot of bikes don't have that. You've got that here on this basically entry-level Ninja, which is pretty cool to have. All right, let's take a look at the dash and a couple other things, especially on this SE model that are unique. So moving just up from that key area, or that what I'm going to call the key area, which you can see in the bottom of your screen there, you have the TFT display. Now it's worth noting that the SE model and the KRT SE model have the very familiar TFT display that Kawasaki has put in a number of bikes. There is an LCD, a high contrast LCD display in the non-SE Ninja 500. So there's a different display on that model that's a little bit less. It's still a digital display, but it is a little bit different display. So what do you have with this? Both bikes are going to give you cell phone connectivity. So in the Z model, I ran over what exactly that covers, but you're going to have basic things like you can check on the bike, you can check the fuel level, you can track your maintenance, that kind of thing. I believe you can track your routes if you set it up correctly. But the biggest thing is it's going to give you that Bluetooth connectivity to allow you to have your messages and, or at least I think it's your email messages possibly, but and phone calls. So when you have a phone call coming in, you can see that kind of thing. So there's various connectivity levels. Now what's great about this is forgetting what's actually included in that connection with that Rideology app. The fact that it is fully capable to talk back and forth between that app and the dash allows that app to improve and may allow increased functionality over time. It's just part of having a fully modern bike. So as we take a look at this, you can sort of see what you've got here. Gear indicator there. First of all, the dash can be inverted, black or white. Obviously, I should clean this a little bit better. There's some glare on there in the camera that you don't see in person. But all the white, like the speedometer there, it can be made black. All the black can be made white, so it can be inverted for day or nighttime. I personally like the black, although sometimes I've filmed it in white because I think it might film a little bit better in white, but it is what it is. Gear indicator, 6-speed transmission, we'll talk about that. You've got a red line of 11,000 RPM. You've got a full tank of fuel in this one. This one's got a kilometer on there for the odometer. There are some buttons down here which you can cycle through. So trip A, trip B, and back to odometer, and then on this side here, we're gonna go through the bottom there. So we've got range, which is the distance to empty. It's gonna calculate that based on how far, based on how you have been driving. So it's a guideline more than a exact like it can't predict the future, right? So if you drive full throttle for the last bit, it's going to be different than what it says. Moving on through there, average speed is in here, which is nice, total time, battery voltage, and then you've got kilometers per liter, which could be liters per 100 kilometers, could be miles per gallon US, could be miles per gallon UK, all of that stuff you can set up here, which is your instant fuel efficiency and then your average fuel efficiency. So all of that, of course, in that bottom design, and you have your clock in there. All of this is standard. You can change some views on here as well, but it's a pretty good TFT display. Works very well, nice and clear, good, easy information to work through. You don't have any adjustment of it on the handlebars like you do in some higher level bikes, but you do have all the adjustments right there on the dash, which is perfectly fine, I think, for most users. Zooming out from that view we had before, I do want to point out that the SE model does have a USB-C port right here. So if you're going to mount your cell phone or something else like that and you want the port to power it, it's already set up. You're not paying for any extra Kawasaki accessories to have that. And again, USB-C will fit a modern cell phone cord, that kind of thing. You could set up on the clip-ons here some version of cell phone holder if you wanted for GPS or whatever you wanted there. So there will be options to mount your phone or something else on bikes like these, but you do have the power right there, which is just a nice, super convenient piece. Again, you won't have that on the non-SE model, but it will be something that is a option to you through the Kawasaki accessories catalog. A lot of this SE is Kawasaki accessories added on as standard equipment, and I think there's some value there in the way it's equipped for somebody who doesn't view this as only their first bike, somebody who views this as a bike they're going to keep for a while. Taking a look at the controls here on this bike, basically the same as the previous Ninja. You have a little trigger here that you can't see on camera that's going to flash your high beams, so you can sort of get that flash to pass, they call it, but of course that's also great for getting people's attention. You can lock your high beams on like that, low beams there, signals, horn, and then now you have that hazard warning lights, which I really think is a good piece to have. Sometimes you're just stopping, navigating, doing that kind of thing. Having those little bit extra, instead of just one signal, having on the both hazard lights really kind of draws attention to you, and you've got that here. The other thing we should talk about is the clutch. The clutch, of course, on this bike is a nice, very light clutch pull. Now that happens for two reasons. First of all, it is a slipper and assist clutch. So that slipper and assist clutch is something that if you were doing aggressive downshifts and just dump the clutch without rev matching very well, what this is designed to do is allow the clutch to slip a tiny bit instead of that wheel to slip. So it helps keep you stable in an aggressive riding environment, but it also is great for beginner riders. If you mess up your downshift a little bit, it's going to work with you to try to prevent wheel spin, which is good. And the side benefit of having that safety feature is it just makes your clutch extra light. So it's already a smaller bike, lighter clutch pull anyways, but then you add in that slipper and assist clutch and it just really is a one finger pull, Very easy to modulate clutch there. So nice to have that on this bike as well. So we've looked at some of the basic differences that come up in this Ninja 500, but now let's place it in the class and help you decide if it's right for you. So in the class, this SE model, the SE KRT, the SE model, steps up that entry-level bike and puts on a lot of things that experienced riders would like. A little USB port, a little extra wind protection, comfortable seat of course is standard, but having this extra piece on the back here for styling for this sort of one-person bike, all those things, and even the frame sliders, all of those things are nice step-ups, nice little protection on the tank that I think makes sense for someone who views this bike as a bike they're going to keep for a long time. And a lot of people used to view the entry-level bikes as a bike you move on from. Remember, this bike started as a Ninja 250. Then it moved to a Ninja 300, then it moved to a Ninja 400, and now it's not quite a 500, but that 451. You're entering a stage where this is no longer an entry-level bike. I mean, when I started riding a 400, a 500 was a big bike. It was a plenty good bike to do all the things you wanted to do. So what you've done now is you've taken that entry-level price point and given it a number of features here that make this a real legitimate bike you can buy once and keep for a long, long time. Keep in mind the top speed of this bike isn't that far off the top speed of other bigger bikes. It might take a little bit longer to get there, but the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 0 to 60 speed isn't that far off. These are geared for performance and they're geared for performance on the road. The other cool thing about this bike is it still maintains that flavor of that really fun handling bike that has made the Ninja 400 so popular. The Ninja 400 was a very popular bike for on the street and also people to take as their first racetrack bike, and this doesn't really change that. The weight is essentially the same, the engine is essentially the same, but you now have a little bit more power. That little bit extra grunt I think is going to make a difference to a lot of people, and that places this in a unique class because some manufacturers want to stay small. They want to hit that really, really cheap insurance class. This moves it up a little bit, but I don't think it takes it far enough out of the insurance class that it won't be affordable. So now what you have in the SE model is two flavors of a bike that is going to get you more value. You're having something that can be used for touring with that extra big or a little bit larger windshield, but you also have the option to step down to that entry-level Ninja, which again, $900 less Canadian, which has a few less things. It has a little bit different display, has no USB-C port, has a smaller windshield, has no frame protection, has no frame or tank protection, has none of this cap on the back. But it does give you an entry-level point for an entry-level price point, which is the same bike. It's going to perform the same way. And it also gives you a point where if you don't want some of these features that are on this bike, you can turn it to a race bike. You can swap out suspension and go full-on crazy with that bike in the future if you want to without spending the extra money here. So you've got two classes of Ninjas in the entry-level segment that I think make a lot of sense. This is still the class leader as far as features per dollar. Now you've got power per dollar still staying up there. This is an excellent, excellent bike. So let me know in the comments below. Do you like the SE model? Do you like just the regular Ninja model? What do you want to know about these bikes? Because again, we're going to have comparisons between this and the Z400. We're going to have other stuff to talk about, or Z500, excuse me. So let me know in the comments what you like. But there's your review of the new Ninja 500 SE.